Welcome back to Cloud 2K. Now, as you guys know, NBA contracts have really become a big part in saying how good or how bad a player is. It's like, yeah, he's playing pretty good. He's averaging like 15, 4, and 5, but he's making $45 million, so really is it that good? Or there's guys that are playing on really good deals that are playing really well. It's like, oh, you're getting crazy value. There's a lot of that going on in the NBA today, and I know some of it kind of sucks because people get these contracts and teams have to give out these bigger contracts sometimes to keep players on the team so they don't leave, and it just completely throws the narrative off on these people. So I'm not really the biggest fan of it, but today we're going to be reacting to an article. This is ranking the NBA's 5 best and 5 worst value contracts right now by Andy Bailey, January 12th, 2025. As I'm recording this, you'll probably see this on like Wednesday or something like that. So a couple days old by the time you see it. So you guys might have already seen this article or watched other people react to it. That's okay. And right away, I see Zach LaVine's the poster, the cover athlete for this, which I have some issue with. I mean, I get it. He's on a big contract. And you know what? We'll get into it here. We might as well go ahead into this article. With less than a month to go before the 2025 NBA trade deadline, we're officially in trade, rumor, and contract evaluation season. Now and the offseason have long been prime windows to look at what individual NBA players are making and compare that to how valuable or detrimental they are to their teams. Okay? When analyzing whether a contract is good, several factors come into play. Age is important, health history is huge, the length of the contract, and the average annual value are obviously key too, but one thing is unavoidable, and that's subjectivity. Okay, yeah, obviously, this is not objective, this is subjective, this is purely opinion, but I get the health history and the age for Zach LaVine probably is part of the reason his contract does not look very good right now. So with all of the above in mind, and while omitting both rookie contracts, whose value are determined by the league, and the league's very best players, Nikola Jokic and Shea, obviously provide more value than their contracts suggest, but we're operating in a world with salary caps and max deals. Here are the 5 of the best and 5 worst contracts in the NBA right now. Okay, I'm going to give a couple predictions. Obviously, Zach LaVine, we already know is on that. Bradley Beal's going to be on this for worst contract. Jalen Brunson should be very high up on this because, he took a crazy pay cut on that extension. Listen, if Jalen Brunson's not one, I'm not too sure who is at this point in time, but let's get into it. 5th verse, Zach LaVine. Okay, you know what? 5th worst, I'll take it. So he's on this list, but he's at the bottom of the list. Okay, let's hear the rationale. 3 years counting this season, $138 million with a player option in 2026, 2027. I'll preface this by saying Zach LaVine's contract already looks better than it did prior to the start of the young season because yes, it states right here, Zach LaVine's been really good this season. He's having a career year from 3, I think, or at least it's one of his best seasons from 3. He's been very good. He's one of the few bright spots on the Bulls this season. I think he's kind of played himself into tradable talks. And what I mean by that is, before the season started, with his past 2-3 years of the injury history, his contract, people were like, there's no way you can trade Zach LaVine. Nobody wants his contract. Nobody wants to deal with Zach LaVine. Now, he's in trade talks to go to the Clippers, to go to the Nuggets, to go to the Lakers. He's in trade talks to go to a lot of different teams because they're like, you know what? You're still paying Zach LaVine a lot of money, but you know what? At least he's playing like a very good player, he wasn't the case past couple seasons, mostly because of injuries. He's played in 32 of the Chicago Bulls' 37 games. He's averaging 23.3 points, 4.5 assists, over 3 threes a game, 44%. And the team's point differential per 100 possessions is far better than when he's on the floor. So, it's also like part of the thing that the Bulls are bad. They don't have a lot going for them. So them being bad when he's off the court just kind of makes sense. Let's see. At the very least, the past offseason talk of Chicago needing to attach the first LaVine, the trade talk should probably be over. Yeah, I agree. But this is still... I don't know about that word. His 2024-2025 salary is tied with Luka Doncic for the 17th highest in the league. His contract runs through 2026-2027. I mean, being tied with Luka is kind of crazy, but Luka's a top 5 player in this league, and arguably better depending how you feel about it. So him being the 17th highest paid player probably is actually good value for Luka Doncic. So, that's some tough company to be in contract-wise. Because, I mean, we're paying attention to the 17th and 18th best, highest paid players in the league. I think at that point in time, you're really starting to split hairs. Thanks to his below-average defense, LaVine hasn't even played like a top 50 player this season. I disagree with the top 50 player. I do agree his defense isn't exactly good. Again, the Bulls aren't a very good team. They're not a very good defensive team. I don't believe so. Maybe the stats prove me wrong with that, but just like watching them, they don't look very good on defense. So I think part of that can be attributed to the team around him. But again, as an ISO defender, he's not very good himself. He's going to be 30 in March in his injury history. It's hard to imagine he'll start playing like a top 20, 30 player during the life of this contract, which is fine. I think Zach LaVine, especially to a place like the Denver Nuggets could be a very, very good third option or a top option when Jokic and Jamal Murray are on the bench. Him and Russell Westbrook running that second unit, because Russell Westbrook's been really good recently too. I think at this point in time, he's a third option. And yes, you're paying him top 20 money to be a third option. I get that. But so are the Phoenix Suns. So are the Philadelphia 76ers. And they're in a much, much worse situation. So, fifth best, Jared Allen. I like Jared Allen. 5 years, $130 million. He's the defensive anchor, or at least one of the two, of the historically stout team that's on pace for 73 wins. Yeah, him and I just talked about Evan Mobley in a video last week about potential 2028 All-Stars. They're phenomenal. Jared Allen could be an All-Star this year, too. They have 4 All-Star level players. He's impacting games like a top 20 player, and he's providing that impact without commanding a ton of touches or time of possession from higher usage stars like Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. I mean, yeah, he's just very, very good. He's a solid double-double machine, 15 points, 10 rebounds, 1.2 blocks, 65% from the field. He's outside the top 7 average annual salary. This is a phenomenal. You're paying a top 5 center in the East. Am I crazy for saying that? He's playing like a top 5 center in the Eastern Conference right now. A lot of that's because Joel Embiid's been having his issues and stuff like that. But he's been playing like a top 5 center. You have Cat, you have Embiid, you have like Miles Turner. I'm forgetting somebody. I'm definitely forgetting somebody, and I hate that I even started listing off names. Porzingis has been okay. He's had his good moments, but it's like, I think you're paying a guy that's been a top 5 center in Eastern Conference, just not even close to top 5 center money. I mean, obviously not top 5 in the league, but you get what I'm saying. There's a real chance. He's already been an All-Star in Cleveland once. He could do it again this year. I don't have much to say about Jared Allen. I'm a really, really big fan of Jared Allen. I remember the talks that potentially they could trade Jared Allen to have Evan Mobley run the full-time 5. And again, we still have a couple years down the line. They could still do that. But as of right now, it's looking like that front court is working well together. Fourth worst is Jaylen Brown. So, I'm going to give my rationale before they jump into theirs. I don't agree with this, but I can see because he's making like over $300 million, and he's not a one option. You're paying top of the league money to a guy that's not the one option. He just did win Finals MVP, so that's going to play a big part of it. I think he actually just won Athlete of the Year. I believe he won that. He won something like that. I don't agree with this. 5 years, $288 million. I think it's over 300 with incentives. Am I right? Maybe I don't know. This one might be a little controversial, and it's not even a suggestion that the Boston Celtics shouldn't have given him the extension they did. He's a crucial part of a core that just won a championship. He was a 2024 Finals MVP, even if some numbers suggest he should have been whatever. He's smack dab in the middle of his prime. He's averaged at least 20 points in each of his last 6 seasons. I'm not seeing an issue here. And perhaps, most importantly, had Boston not extended him, it might eventually lose him without a realistic way of replacing him thanks to the salary cap, blah, blah, blah. But this exercise is strictly about value provided versus contract burden, and Brown's current contract makes him the 6th highest paid in makes him the 6th highest paid player in the league this season. He is not now, nor has he ever been close to being a top 6 player in the NBA. Okay. So they put him in the top 50 to 60 range. I want to know what they're using, what metrics they're using to say he's top 50 or 60. Because I think he's been really, really good. I understand, like, yes, his assist to turnover ratio, it is what it is. He's never been a great playmaker. But, like, I don't, saying he's not a top 30 player in the NBA right now, or even in the top 50 to 60 range, that seems more analytical than it does watching the game. And I'm a big believer in, like, you have to watch these games. Obviously, analytics are going to be able to help back up some stats. And, like, your advanced analytics will be able to tell you, like, well, the team's better when this guy's on the court versus this guy, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Yes, I understand stats who have their role, and they're very, very important. But watching the game is the most important thing. If you see Jaylen Brown on the court, usually they're doing pretty damn good. To say he's not a top 50, he is better than some teams' number 1 options. He truly, truly is. Jaylen Brown's a very, very good player. He was named Athlete of the Year, I'm pretty sure. Like I said, I've said that already, but I'm pretty sure it's what he was. Finals MVP. He deserved Finals MVP. Tatum had his moments in the finals, but he also struggled a good amount. He deserved the Finals MVP. And again, you said it yourself. They had to pay him, or they were going to lose him, and you weren't going to get anybody as good as Jaylen Brown in free agency. It just wasn't going to happen. I fully disagree with this one. I get it. It's a lot of money. But saying he's in the top 50 to 60 range is just kind of insane to me. Fourth best, Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves has been so good this season. I love to see this. 3 years, about $42 million with a player option. It seemed bonkers in the moment, but no competitor offering Austin Reeves a competitive contract in restricted free agency was a massive coup for the Los Angeles Lakers. Reeves is only 26 years old. He's the third best offensive player on a team with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. He's averaging 18.3 points, about 6 assists, and over 2.5 threes a game. And his average annual salary ranks outside the top 130 of current NBA contracts. He's outperforming his salary right now and almost certainly will in each of the next 2 seasons, although Reeves picking up the player option feels pretty unlikely. Yeah, as long as he keeps playing like he is for the next 2 years, he's going to decline that player option and get a lot more money. Is it from the Lakers? I don't know, because the Lakers are paying a lot of guys. I don't know if LeBron's going to be on the team at that point in time, so maybe he's going to want to go somewhere else, or I don't know, maybe I don't think they build around Austin Reeves at all. But like, maybe he gets it back from the Lakers. I don't really know how that's going to go yet, but I digress on that one. He's been super, super good. He hit that game winner Christmas. Was that Christmas Day? It was around Christmas. He hit that game winner. I think it was on Christmas Day. He's been, the third best offensive player on the team. He's been the third best player on the team behind LeBron and Anthony Davis. And there's even games where he is the best player on the team, or at least is playing like it that night. You know what I'm saying? 3 years, $41 million. I don't know if teams got... I don't really know why he didn't get offers. I know he had his struggles last season or the season before, but like, he's always been pretty damn good. And the thing about the Lakers is they're going to find that white dude that's just like going to come in and play his role and then go get paid. It happened with Alex Caruso. It might happen again with Austin Reeves when his contract is up. They have a knack for just finding these guys that do a lot of different things and can be the third option on a team. Caruso wasn't exactly the third option, but he was a really, really big role on the team. Shout out, being a top... he's being paid outside the top 130, and I think he's been a top 50 player in the NBA this season. What you're saying about Jaylen Brown, I think, is true about Austin Reeves. I don't know. I get it. People have the LA biases, and they might overrate him a little bit because he plays for the Lakers. I get it. I've seen it firsthand. I watch the Lakers a lot. I'm a fan of the Lakers, and I see it, man. Some of our players get overrated because they play for the Lakers, but Austin Reeves is really that dude, and I think a lot of teams would be very, very happy with him. Third worst, Kawhi Leonard. Okay. This has got to be strictly because of health, because when Kawhi Leonard is healthy, he's one of the best players in the entire NBA. So I'm assuming it's just off of health. 3 years, $149 million. This one's a little less about Kawhi Leonard plays. Okay, yeah, when he's available, and a lot more about rarely he's, available. So, yes, exactly what I said. It's about health. Because Kawhi hasn't been healthy by the end of the Los Angeles Clippers playoffs since 2020. And when his team coughed up a 3-1 lead to the young Denver Nuggets. He only appeared in 2 games this season. He turns 34 this summer. And yeah, he just stepped away again from Clippers because I think part of his family was affected by the Los Angeles wildfire. So prayers with everybody in Los Angeles. It's a crazy, crazy situation. I hope everybody's okay. And a degenerative knee condition that may have contributed to his average of fewer than 40 games per season over the last 8 years isn't likely to improve as he enters his mid-30s. Yeah, okay. I can't really argue with this too much because they even say here, when he plays, he's a top 10 player in the NBA. We've seen it before. In the 2019 run, he was arguably one of the best, if not the best players in the entire NBA. But yeah, he just doesn't really play anymore. And it's a real big shame because I think a lot of people have forgotten how good Kawhi Leonard is, and they started to underrate him in a sense of they just don't know because they don't see him on the court. So you can't really blame him too much because they're not seeing him on the court. But when Kawhi Leonard is healthy, man, he is such a good player, and it makes me a little sad. Just kind of think about some of these guys like James Harden, like Kawhi Leonard, both funny enough on the Clippers, or even like Russell Westbrook as well, Paul George even with the way he's playing. These guys that were so good for so long that have dealt with some injuries or just kind of fallen off a little bit, and some of the younger generation don't really know, and they only know them as this version, not their prime version. And man, shout out Kawhi Leonard. Third best, Cam Johnson. There's been some reports recently that it's a chance they keep him on the Nets, and I think that's an awful idea. Like, he's playing really, really well, but I'm going to be honest, this is probably a career year for Cam Johnson. I'm not saying he's going to fall off a cliff, but I think this is a lot more than we've ever seen him play in Phoenix. Like, he's doing a lot more on the court. Part of that's because, yes, he was behind Devin Booker, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges. He was behind a lot of different people, but I think because he's on the Nets, he has this crazy opportunity to be a top option compared to what he usually is. I don't think you're ever going to see this on a team trying to win. He's just not going to get this kind of free ability. So I think if you're the Nets, you have to bite on the fact that he's having a career year and try to get your best return. But 3 years, $65 million. I remember when they gave him this contract, a lot of people thought it was an overpay. So it's kind of funny how that works out. With Mikal Bridges traded to the New York Knicks this past offseason and Dennis Schroeder and Dorian Finney-Smith unloaded as well, Cam Johnson has a chance to show a bit more of his game in 2024-2025. The 6'8", soon-to-be 29-year-old forward is averaging 19.5 points, over 3 threes a game, and career-high 3 assists while shooting 46, about 43% from deep. He's not known as a lockdown defender, but his size and awareness make him solid on the end, and he's already shown an ability to scale his offensive game up or down depending on what his team needs. He's arguably been a top 50 to 60 player. They love 50 to 60. They've said that multiple times now. But his average annual salary barely ranks him in the top 90 of current contracts. Again, remember when he got this contract, people thought it was an overpay for what Cam Johnson was doing in Phoenix. But he's shown that, like, given the opportunity, he can be a very, very good player. Again, I just said it before. I don't know if this is what you like. If he's on a winning team trying to win a championship, obviously, you're not getting this version of Cam Johnson. Now, you might get it in spurts. You might have moments where he's on the court with a lot of the bench, and he can do this kind of thing, which I think is important that he was able to unlock this in Brooklyn. But you're going to probably see him more in his Phoenix role than you are in his Brooklyn role if you're on a winning team. And it's like, okay, you're not paying $20-some million to a role player, but I don't know, man. He's been really, really good. He can put the ball on the floor. He's held his own on the defensive side of the ball, which has been a issue for him a lot. I think third best Cam Johnson. I don't know. This feels a little bit like recency, which makes sense. I guess it's kind of what it's based off of. Cam Johnson's really, really good, and I don't want you to think any otherwise. I'm not saying any otherwise. I just think that teams that trade for him shouldn't expect this version of him very consistently. Like, it's just not going to happen. He's going to be more of his Phoenix Suns self. But again, I really like Cam Johnson. Second worst, Jeremy Grant. This sucks for Jeremy Grant because he took this contract fully believing Damian Lillard was still going to be on the Portland Trail Blazers. Or maybe Dame told him he was leaving, but he was staying around long enough to get Jeremy Grant the contract. We've heard that before. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not true. But Jeremy Grant got his bag, man. 4 years, $132 million with a player option in 2027, 2028. Yeah, he's not been very good. This Portland team's not been very good. But I also think, the evolution of Jeremy Grant has been very interesting. This is a guy in Philadelphia, in Denver. There was a hustle, a defender, a rebounder. Like, he was just doing all the dirty work to get his minutes. But then he got that contract. He got the contract with Detroit for like $20-some million a year. Maybe it was like $20 million a year. And he broke out into, like, as a scorer. And it's like, okay, Jeremy Grant can also be a solid scorer, defender. But then he kind of stopped playing defense and stopped rebounding once he got his contract with Detroit. It's like he went from a guy that was there for hustle, rebound, heart. And then he's like, oh, I got my bag. I showed everybody I could average 20 a game. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to average 20 a game and get like a couple rebounds a game and just whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's strange. And they say he's been a below average rebounder his entire career. I don't know. I don't fully disagree with that because I think it was just a role he was in and like kind of the heart he played with. But it's really bad right now. And again, I think this is part of the thing where Damian Lillard got this dude paid. So shout out Damian Lillard for that. And I don't know if he's ever going to get traded because, my God, he's not playing very, like it says right here, getting paid like a top 50 to 60. That number 50 to 60 again. But he's not even performing like a starter. Part of that could be Portland trying to lose games because they're trying to get a top pick because they need it very, very desperately. But I just don't know. I don't know what's going on with Jeremy Grant. It's a weird case. And I don't know what teams really want to trade for him right now because it's not very good. Second best, Jaren Jackson Jr. Shout out Jaren Jackson Jr. Has been good for years. And I think a lot of people have overlooked Jaren Jackson because obviously John Morant, Desmond Bane are guys that deserve a lot of praise and attention on that Memphis Grizzlies team. 2 years, about $49 million. Jaren Jackson Jr. has quietly been the most impactful player in the Memphis Grizzlies, who are currently third in the West. He's only missed 2 games this season, the first 2, and is averaging 22.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, about 2 blocks a game, almost 2 threes a game, and a steal and a half. If there's something we know about Jaren Jackson Jr. his entire career, he's not really a rebounder. That's one of the few knocks you can have on Jaren. He just doesn't really seem to get the boards a lot. But he's had Steven Adams, he's had Brandon Clark, he's had now Zach Edey. Like, he has a lot of centers behind him that kind of eat up a lot of the rebounds. So it makes sense, but you're kind of hoping he would be able to get more because he's like, 6'8", 6'9", 6'10". Like, he's a taller dude. He has an all-star case and might even be a sneaky All-NBA 1. I don't think he's going to be an All-NBA selection, but I think he definitely has an all-star case. And his average annual salary barely ranks in the top 80. Add the fact that Jaren Jackson Jr. is only 25. It's easy to see how this is one of the most valuable contracts in the NBA right now. I want to pull up the stats for this one because I'm actually a really, really big fan of Jaren Jackson Jr. He's been really, really good this season, and he's been good for the past 2 or 3 years, like especially last year where they had a lot of injuries. He was able to kind of step out of his comfort zone and take a higher role on this team, and I think it's really helped him blossom into what he's been this season. Now, okay, I just saw we're going to get into the best contracts and the worst contract value-wise, I guess, from Bleacher Report. We already saw Bradley Beal's up there. Makes sense. Haven't seen Jalen Brunson, so I'm assuming he's going to be number 1 as well. But the worst is Bradley Beal. Makes sense. It makes sense. we just talked about him in my Cloud Report video on Sunday about what they're going to do with him. 3 years, $161 million with a player option. He's just his fifth-ranked salary. He's off the bench now. He got benched by Mike Budenholzer, and him and Yusuf Nurkic got benched. This team is a dumpster fire right now, and I'm glad to see that they're not saying he's bad, because Bradley Beal's not a bad player. He's not a great player. He's a fine, good player. He's definitely not the player they paid this $50 million to over there in Washington. But it's like he's kind of like I talked about in my video on Sunday that Twitter's kind of underrated him in a sense that like they've overhated him to the point where a lot of people think he's a bad player. He's not a bad player. He's a good player. But I don't know what they're gonna do. There's no way I don't think there's a way he leaves. Maybe they trade him to Miami for Jimmy Butler. Maybe that gets done. I don't know. It seems like Jimmy Butler's trying to force his way to the Phoenix Suns, but I've been talking about that all last week, so I'm not going to get into that again. He just makes so much money. He's not good on defense. He's shooting fine. Offensively, he still has a lot of skill sets, but defensively, he's bad. And being behind players like Steph Curry, Joel Embiid, Jokic, and Kevin Durant in money-wise, you just can't be this not very great. Does that make sense? I feel like that's a weird way to say that, but it almost makes sense. He and LeBron James are the only 2 players in the league who have that written to their contracts, like the no trade clause. Polar Bear and Arlington on that one. So I don't know, man. It's by far the worst one. I don't think there's really much debate about that. It sucks for Bradley Beal too. But yep. Jalen Brunson being the best makes complete sense because 5 years, $181 million. I think he was able to make $250+ million, but he said no when he took the 5 years, $181 million. He was phenomenal last year. Yeah, 5th in MVP voting, and when he signed his way below max extension with the New York Knicks this past summer, it instantly became the best value deal in the league outside of their contracts for super duper stars like Jokic, SGA, Giannis Antetokounmpo. The 28-year-old point guard's average annual salary ranks outside the top 40, but he's once again playing well enough to receive All-NBA consideration. I know to start this season, people were like a little bit off on Jalen Brunson because it seemed like with the addition of Karl-Anthony Towns, he was trying to figure out to be the playmaker, to be the scorer. Because last year, he was able to kind of do both. He was able to just have the ball in his hands all the time, be the scorer, be the playmaker. Everything ran through Jalen Brunson. But now you bring in a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns who deserves the ball, deserves a lot of attention. It was like, okay, Brunson was trying to figure out, now I get the ball, I get to make my moves, or now I pass you the ball. And it's like now, recently, he's able to kind of figure that out a lot quicker, and it's looked a lot better. It's looking a lot better like he did last season. So, yeah, it was a little weird to start the season. But now, nearly halfway through the season, and despite accommodating recent acquisitions, Karl-Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges, Brunson's averaging 25 points, 7.5 assists, and 2.3 threes, while shooting 38.6% from deep. I mean, yeah. He's been really, really good recently. I mean, all season he's been good, but he's really stepped himself up recently as well. And they're, I think they're 3 seed in the Eastern Conference right now. This team has real championship aspirations. And I didn't even mention Mikal Bridges. Not only did they bring in a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns that took a lot of touches away from him, they bring in a guy like Mikal Bridges. So he had to really learn how to play with an entirely new offense because they brought in 2 stars. Man, this wasn't bringing in role players who he had to figure out. They brought in 2 stars for him to play, to like kind of play his game around him. I think there was nobody else who's going to be one on either side. I don't think there's going to be, nobody's going to be better than Jalen Brunson's contract. Nobody's going to be worse than Bradley Beal's contract. It's just what it is. I appreciate you guys watching, and I hope to see you guys later. Peace.